Cool. So we are going through the deck of cards assignment, which I have right here.
Phil leaves the microphone on.
It's on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I turned the volume off, I believe. So what we're going to be doing is just kind of checking off each of these to-do items as we go through this assignment. These earlier assignments are great because there is a lot of hand-holding. We tell you exactly what to do, and you kind of just have to do it one piece at a time. And don't try to bite off more than you could chew. I'm going to demo this assignment as if I was a student, and I'm just kind of reading it as I go. I'm going to build it as I go. Cool? All right, so I started a new project. You guys have all seen this before. Using system, just to start off, namespace is DOC demo, public class program, public static void main. I don't touch these lines. This is the entry point into my program, right? So I will .NET run just to make sure everything's good. Hopefully I get a hello world. I do. Everything looks good. All right, so let's revisit our assignment, and it says create a class called card. I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to create a class called card. All right, and I'm just going to share all of this for a quick second. And instead of public class, it's going to be card. Cool. So I'm sharing the same namespace, DOC demo, so that all of this code is shared across my application. And I've just created a public class called card. I don't need this. I don't think I will need it, but yeah. Cool. Give the card class a property string val, which will, it looks like, eventually hold one of these values. This val should be a string. Cool. String val. So I'm going to public string, I think it was string val, right? Cool. And I also need suit and val. So this will be suit, this will be val, this will be int. Cool. So I just checked off 1, 2, 3. I know that went pretty fast, but they're pretty much the same rules, right? Give the card a property of suits. Give the card a property of val. That's going to be a numerical value, so that's why I typed it as an int. We following so far? Yeah, just a couple of attributes of this card class. Moving on to the next one, create a class called deck. This will get a little bit more interesting now, but same thing. Deck.cs. Cool. I think I will need system later, but I'll use them as I need them. It's called deck, right?
So your namespace can be the same?
Sorry?
Your namespace can be the same?
My name. The question was if my namespace should be the same, and absolutely it should be. Yeah. Across any files or any code that you want to be shared across the application, they should be the same. Yeah. So namespace DOC demo, which is the same namespace as everything so far.
Namespace is just your project name, right?
It's the name of the application. Yeah. So you guys will see like us doing stuff like oh crap, like when you have a using statement up here, that's you bringing in code from a different namespace. If that helps. I don't think that did, but anyways.
Do you have to have a different CS file for all your different classes? Or is that just
You don't have to. It's really good practice though. And just as a general rule of thumb, I'm going to say yes, you should do that. Yeah. Give the deck class a property called cards, which is a list of card objects. So I'm going to have a list of card objects called what? Cards. Cool. So I have a red squiggly. What should I do?
Hover over it.
Hover over it. Are you missing a using directive or an assembly reference? Yes. Probably because I'm using a list, which comes from system collections generic, right? Cool. So I've defined an attribute of cards, which will be a list of cards, right? When initializing the deck, make sure, wait, first of all, when initializing the deck, this indicates that we're going to need what in my deck class. A constructor function, exactly, because that's what this initialize word is referencing, right? When initializing the deck, make sure that it has a list of 52 unique cards as its cards property. Cool. I know in Python, I think the constructor function is called the init function, right? And then I think in Ruby, it's also called def init. In JavaScript, I think it's called constructor, the method. In C#, the constructor is what? How do we define a constructor method of a class? What was that?
Like it is.
The same name as the class, exactly. Thank you. So we are going to have a public deck. Nope. Like this. That's my constructor method, right? Cool. So when initializing the deck, make sure that it has a list of 52 unique cards as its cards property. So when I initialize my deck, I am going to set my cards equal to a new list of cards and call a method called build deck. Does that look good? Oops. I don't have a method called build deck yet, right? So I'm probably going to do that right here. Public. I don't think this will return anything.
You didn't need that for the deck,
Nope. What, the return type?
but the void.
Void? The void is the return type.
Yeah. So for.
Yeah, I don't need a return type for my constructor function. Constructor functions shouldn't return anything to you. It's just some rules that happens when your deck gets built, right? So this is a special method, guys. It's not like any other method. It's special, so there are some things that it doesn't follow, like having a return type for a method, right? All methods should have return types, but not this one.
Question for you on the cards equals new list cards.
Yeah.
You're doing this within our class here of deck, and so this is your constructor function, or your.
So
Right, I'm just trying to understand what you're doing with you're creating a new instance of list cards.
yes. So that's a good question. Thanks, Kevin. So if I have in a string of name, public string name, and I have this, right? Is there anything currently being held in name? No, right? There's nothing being held in name, right? So I've made some space for something to be held there, a string to be held there, but nothing's actually being stored here. Similarly, up here, I've created some memory to hold a list of cards, but there is not an actual list of cards present in that memory space, right? So in my constructor function, I'm just setting cards equal to an actual list of cards. Now that list is still empty. There are no cards in that list, but that list of cards object is there. Does that make sense? Cool. And I might come back to that again, Kevin, because I'm going to make a point on it later. But good question. So I have this method build public void build deck. Cool. What should I do here?
We need to build a deck.
I need to build a deck. A standard deck has 52 cards, 4 suits. Let's just do a string array called suits equals, what are my suits? Hearts, clubs, spades, diamonds. Cool. And I have what string of like the values? What should I call them? Like, let's just call them values. Let's just call them face.
Like a name and value?
Name?
Because you have face cards, right?
Yeah, so I'm gonna do something like ace 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, jack, queen, king. They do
Yep.
need to be strings. And there are many different ways to do this, but I find that this is the easiest to demo because you guys will see exactly what I'm going to be doing with this. What do you guys think I'll be doing with these two arrays?
Combining them.
Shuffling comes later. So I have these two arrays, right?
Match
Two nested for loop.
Yeah, like some type of nested for loop, right? Like var int, what do I need to do? Do I need to start the outer loop with suits? Yes, I do. Var int suit equals 0. Suit is less than suits dot length.
Async.
Can you do a for each instead in here?
I don't think I would.
For each suit in suits?
You could do that, sure, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but that wouldn't give me like an iterable 0 to 4. It would actually give me hearts, clubs, spades, diamonds. But you're absolutely right, I could do that. For my inner for loop, I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to do int val equals 0. Val is less than, I don't know why it does that, less than values dot length, val plus plus. Cool. So at this point, if I were to console.writeLine card, what should I do? Suit of suit? No. Of. Would this work? Well, we're gonna see.
What is the dollar sign here?
The dollar sign is just another way of string interpolation or string concatenation. It just allows me to inject values directly into these, into that string. Yeah. So in my program or in the main function of my program, I am going to create a new deck. Deck my deck equals new deck. And when that new deck gets instantiated, I should hopefully see, or let's walk through this. When I hit .NET Run, the main method of my program runs, right? So I'll see hello world, and then this line will run, which will instantiate a new deck. When my new deck instantiates, this constructor function runs immediately, right? Because that's the whole point of a constructor method, right? So my constructor method puts an empty list in cards and then runs this method, which will hopefully we'll see a bunch of console.writelines. You guys following? So .NET executes this method, which will execute this method, which will execute this method, which will execute this method. So it's a bunch of calls that are being made to different methods. But let's check it out. .NET run. Awesome. Ace of hearts, 2 of hearts, 3 of hearts, 4 of hearts, 5 of hearts, all the way to king of hearts. Then it starts over at ace of clubs, all the way to king of clubs, and starts over at ace of spades, goes all the way to king of spades. Looks like 52 cards to me. So if that is crazy, then I will challenge you that it's not that crazy. We just have 2 arrays, and we're just running 2 for loops, and I have a console.writeLine statement here that says values of val, which is 0, right? Values of 0, which is ace, of suits of suit, which is 0, which is hearts, which is why I get ace of hearts. Then Val increments up. This turns into 1. Then it goes to 2 of hearts, 3 of hearts, 4 of hearts. Do you guys see that? Yeah? Cool. So instead of just right-lining these, what do I want to do? I want to actually create the cards and push them in, to my deck, right? So yes, I need an add method, right? So I need to do cards dot add, right? What am I adding?
Everything you built using the deck.
Well, let's pause for a moment. What is cards? CARDS that I'm adding to. What is cards?
List.
A list of what?
The card.
Of strings.
Strings. Is this?
It's
That is a list of strings, but this is a list of cards, right? So this list is going to have 52 card objects. So cards.add, this needs to be a card. Does that make sense? Because if I try to add like a just a simple int, it's going to yell at me saying cannot convert int to, and that just says card. This is my namespace, and this is the class declared inside my namespace. Does that make sense? So I need to add a new card here. Does that make sense? A new card, right?
So are you invoking the new card?
Sorry?
Are you invoking?
Yeah, I'm invoking a new card, or I'm creating a new instance of a card, right? But that is a plain generic card. I want each of my cards to contain a string val, a suit, and a val, right? So I'm going to create a constructor method here. Let's call it public, or we have to call it public card, right? What is wrong here? Oh, that's not within my class. Oops. There we go. So now I have a constructor method. And my constructor method is going to take in a string called string val. It's going to take in a string called suit, and it's going to take in an int called val. And my string val is going to be set to string val. My suit is going to be set to suit. My val will be set to val. Which now means if we come on back over to deck, now my constructor has a problem, right? It says there are no arguments given that corresponds to the required formal parameters that card needs, right? So we define here that card needs a string, and an int, right? Here we're not passing in anything, but we can pass in some strings, right? So the first thing it's expecting is a string val. The string val is pretty much just what? Values of val. Does that make sense? Oops, that's a lowercase v. Cool. The second parameter is going to be the suit, which is suits of suit. Okay? And what's the third parameter going to be?
It's an integer, which we don't have right now.
It's an integer that's supposed to represent the value of the card. Is that right? So aces will be 1s, 2s will be 2s, 3s will be 3s, jacks will be 11s, queens will be 12s, kings will be 13s. Why is that necessary?
Because they're integers, and those are strings. And so we need to assign them some sort of a value so it can read them as an integer.
Yeah, we want our cards to hold some type of integer value so that we can evaluate them against each other, right? If I have a queen and you have a jack, can you do string of queen is greater than string of jack? No, because that will be a falsy statement, right? Because they're both strings, right? But can you do 12 is greater than 11? And that way you can kind of play games with these cards. Does that make sense? So that's why we have this int val. Since I have this nice, yeah, thanks, Jules. It's gonna get hot in here. Since we have this val int, right? That starts off at 0 and goes all the way to values.length, which is about 13, right? What do we start val off at? 0, right? So what if we did val plus 1? Does that make sense? Cool. So now I'm going to get rid of this. For suit equals 0, suit is less than suits.length. Same thing for the internal for loop for values. I'm going to add cards.add a new card object that I'm instantiating here. Values of 0, which is ace. Suits of 0, which is hearts. Val, which is 0 plus 1, so the integer 1. Then val increments to 1, right? Values of 1, which is 2. Suits is still 0, suits of suit, so hearts. Val is now 1, plus 1 is 2. Does that make sense? So now, I'm going to build deck, and I am going to, in my program, console.writeLine my deck dot cards, which I don't know why I don't have access. Oh, public. Did you guys just get that just now? Now it's available. Without the public keyword there, that turns red, and it says inaccessible due to its protection level. It's a pretty darn good error. Thanks, VS Code. So I'll go back here, change this to public. Now, go away. There you go, it goes away. And we can access it. So I'm going to put a breakpoint here. And I'm going to run it through my debug. And hopefully my debug won't hit any errors and it'll just stop right here at my breakpoint. And it'll stop right here at my breakpoints. And in my list of variables here, my debug keeps track of everything. So it looks like my cards list has 52 items in there. And if I open it up, it has all of these card objects. And each card object has a string, suit, val, ace, hearts, 1, 2 hearts, value of 2, 3 heart. You guys following? If I click this random one, 9 clubs, 9. If I click this random one, jack, spades, 11. This one, 9 diamonds, 9. Does that make sense? Cool. So this is my entire, so far, this is my entire application. I have a program with a main method. It's going to console.writeLine hello world, and I've instantiated a new deck. That's all I've done. I pretty much have 2 lines of code. This second line of code does a heck of a lot, though, right? Right? You guys following? This one line of code right here is going to create a deck object. It's going to run that deck object's constructor method, which is going to call on this helper method, which will run 2 nested for loops and add a bunch of card objects into my list of cards. Cool? So a lot of steps we just took there. Any questions at this point? Cool. Give the deck a deal method that selects the topmost card, removes it from the list of cards, and returns the card. Okay, so I need to give the deck class a deal method, right? Can you guys help me write a deal method? It should be public, right? Because we're going to be calling this from the outside public.
We do want to return something.
Yeah, what's our return type here?
We're going to return the card.
Returns a card,
It's a
right?
string.
So what should my return be?
Oh, string.
String?
Object.
Object? I heard card. What is it?
It says return a card. Right?
It says return a card, so we should return a card. Yeah, type card. Is that weird? I think that, for me, that was really weird. Because I think at this point, given JavaScript and Python and everything, all of these objects that we instantiate from these classes, we think of them as type objects. But in C#, since it's truly object-oriented, any class that you define, any instance of that class, it holds that type. Does that make sense? So if I create a class card, a class of card, and I ask the question, what type of object is this? The type is literally card. Not object, not string, not int, it's card. Does that make sense? Cool. So we're returning a card. This is just going to get mad at me because my method doesn't have a return statement yet, but it will. Sorry? Oh, deal? Thank you. Give the deck deal method, selects the topmost card. How do you select the topmost card in the list? I guess that's kind of a philosophical question.
Yeah, it depends on
Is the 50? Let's just do the first one. Deck. Okay, so we need to return this card, right? But if we're going to remove it from the list, we first need to store it in a variable first. So again, we're typing this variable, card temp, let's call it return card, equals cards of 0. Cool. And then here we will return returned card. Does that make sense? But in between, we need to remove the card at the 0th index. How do I do that? Remove removes the first occurrence of a specified object. Yeah, we want to do removes at, because that way we can give it a specific index, right? You can say remove the 0th card. Does that make sense? Cool. So I think that's the entire deal method. That one was a little bit easier than this giant one. But let's test it out. Program. So I have my deck, right? So let's do card, delt card equals my deck dot deal. Cool. Let's do that twice. And then let's console.writeLine my deck. Cool. So if I put a breakpoint here, what card should I expect to be stored in delt card?
the 0th card.
The 0th card, which I think was Ace of Hearts or like Ace of Spades or something, right? What? And this would be like the 2 of Hearts or whatever, right? And then this, my deck.
Should return the entire deck with the exception without those 2 cards.
Dot cards, exactly, yeah. Jessica's right. We should only have 50 cards in my deck dot cards now, right? Cool, let's run it through a debug and hit all these breakpoints to see what we have. Boom. So null so far. Once we step over, it should populate. Ooh, we have a card in there now. Ace of Hearts. When we step out of delt card 2, this null should populate to Ooh, 2 of Hearts, right? When we step over again and we take a look at the My Deck object, we should have just 50 cards. That starts at 3 of hearts, 4 of hearts. We following? Cool. So our deal method seems to be working just fine. Cool. Moving down, give the deck a reset method that resets the card's property to contain the original 52 cards. Okay. Let's see. I think we can do this a little bit better. Public void reset. So instead of here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna set cards equal to a new list of card objects, and then recall build deck.
Do you have to do it that way? Do you have to build a new card list, or can you just take the existing one and set it to the output of build deck?
You cannot do that without keeping track of which cards you've lost. So if you have like a burn pile, where if you draw 2 cards, and it's like a ace of hearts and a 2 of hearts, and you want to discard them, the way that we are going to be, or the way that we're discarding cards is we're literally removing them from memory. But if you want to have like a list of cards called like used cards, and it's kind of like your burn pile there, then your reset can just combine the 2 decks together. Kind of like a real world application of cards. Yeah. Cool. So let me see if this works. Let's go here. So at this point, I think I had 52 cards. But yeah, if we had 50 cards at that one, here I'm going to call my deck dot reset, and hopefully by this breakpoint I will have 52. Cool. So my deck has 50 cards. I'm going to step down, 52. Perfect. Reset. Cool. All right. Any questions so far?
Can I see the reset?
Yeah. My reset is pretty simple. It's going to set cards just to a brand new empty list of cards, and then we're going to rebuild the deck. Yeah. So reset. Gave the deck a shuffle. Oh man. A shuffle method. Cool. It's like we need an algorithm for this one. Public void shuffle. Okay.
Maybe you can find one on Stack Overflow.
I'm sure we can. What was that?
Fisher Yates.
The Fisher-Yates shuffle. Do you guys know what the Fisher-Yates shuffle is?
Yeah.
The Fisher.
What?
You grab a random index
Yeah.
and back value.
It's a famous shuffle that a couple guys invented, or one guy really invented and another guy kind of added to it. So basically, let's take a look at this. Imagine this is an array, right? What you're going to do is find a random number, find a random index, right, from 0 to 13. Grab, and let's say that random number was 7, right? Then we're going to take that number and we're going to swap it with the first index. Then we're going to increment forward. 2 is going to swap with a random number. 3 is going to swap with a random number. 4 is going to swap with random. So we're just doing a bunch of random swaps, and it gives you a pretty good pseudo-random shuffle. Does that make sense? That's the Fisher-Yates shuffle.
So you need a random number from 0, excluding
Yeah, so it looks like we're gonna need a random object. New random. Cool. And what do we need to do?
Go to your thing.
What's up?
Iterate
Iterate through my list of cards. For int index equals 0. Index is less than cards dot count, is it, since we're working with a list?
Yeah, you need the transaction.
Why does it keep doing that? IDX plus plus. Great. And I need to generate a random number. So int rand index equals what? Rand
0 to 14.
dot next from IDX to cards dot count. I think that's right. -1. Because I don't want it to break.
Why -1 outside inside?
I believe cards dot. Oh, actually no, it's exclusive. So I think we're good. The upper bounds is exclusive. Cool. So this range from IDX to card. What's cards dot count?
Your length of
What is it?
13.
I have 13 cards.
No, you have 52
I have
cards.
52 cards,
No, I
right?
mean the index length of your.
So what is cards dot count?
Cards that count as the upper limit. So in other words,
Was-
it's the maximum number of cards you have.
It's 52, right?
Yeah.
It's 52. So that's 52. What's IDX right now?
0.
0, right? So it's going to find a random integer from 0 to 52, and then it's going to find a random integer from 1 to 52, then 2 to 52, and it's going to keep finding this random integer that it's going to use that index to swap with. Does that make sense? And the reason that I needed to stop at 51, right, why I had that -1, but I realized that 52 is the upper bounds, so it'll stop at 51, is because this integer represents an index. If I try to get the 52nd index of my cards, that will be out of bounds, right? Okay, good. Are we all good on this? Okay, so I have a random index, right? This is going to evaluate to some number between 0 and 51, right? So I have this random index. What do I want to do with it?
You need to swap it, so you're going to need a temp variable.
You need a temp variable. So card temp equals
Index.
list. Yeah, I need the index, right? List, or not list. Cards of rand index. Okay. Then I'm going to set cards of rand index equal to cards of IDX. Cool. So this piece of code right here is your standard swap. You guys know that, right? Swap. How to swap two values in an array, right? First, you store the value, a value, in the temp. Then, where you took that value from, you replace it with a new value. Then that value you took it from, you replace it with temp. So do you guys kind of see how temp equals cards random index equals cards of index equals temp? You guys kind of see that like roundabout swappage happening? So that's your standard swap. We're using random index to swap randomly. Cool? I think this will work. And for any math nerds out here, this is called the Fisher-Yates shuffle. So let us check it out. My deck let's do my deck dot what happened?
Because you said me, so mine.
Oh, thank you. Shuffle. And let's console dot write line my deck dot cards. Cool. So again, my program has 3 lines of code in it. We're going to instantiate a new deck. We're going to shuffle that deck, and I put a breakpoint where we're going to look into my deck.cards, which again is just my list of cards, right? We're going to see if it was pretty effectively shuffled. So, play. All right. Still has 52 cards. Still a bunch of just card objects. But this one is an 8 of hearts, 3 of spades, 6 of diamonds, 2 of... Pretty random, I think. I don't think I messed up anything. Cool. So let's replay it. If I was playing blackjack, I just got a 8 of hearts and an 8 of diamonds. Ooh. Do I split these?
Always splits.
I don't know what the book says,
Always
but
split
always
eights.
split eights?
Always split
Okay. All right. We got some pros in here. Cool. Anyways, it looks like our shuffle method works. We have our shuffle method here. We have our reset method, our deal method, and we have this big build deck method. But if we go here, I think we've checked everything off. Cool. So before we move on to building this player class, any questions so far? We've created 2 classes. The card class was pretty simple, but we have these classes communicating with each other. The deck class has a property called cards, which is full of our card class objects, which is pretty cool. Any questions? No? Okay. We will move on to creating a class called player. New file, player.cs. Namespace, deck of cards, and public class player. Cool. Did that. Give the player a hand property that is a list of type card. All right. We've done this before. What should I do here? I need a hand property.
So you need a list.
Need a list. So a list of what?
Cards.
Card objects called hand. Cool. What do I need? I think I need like system.collections.generic, right? No. Cool. All right. Give the player a draw method of which, is that good English? Give the player a draw method of which draws a card from a deck. Sounds weird to me. Anyways, this player is going to have a draw method, and it's going to draw a card from a deck and add it to the player's hand and returns the card. So we're going to break this down a little bit. First of all, I need a constructor method, which will initially put into my hand a new list of card objects. Cool. Awesome. So I have a hand property, a constructor function, and I'm going to have a public. Does it return something? The card? Okay. Public card draw. Draw method, yeah. Draws a card from the deck. Cool. And it's going to return some type of card. Cool. So what do we need to do here, guys?
We need to pick a card at random.
We need to pick a card, right? Or the deck will be shuffled. So our draw method can just pretty much take
The one off the top.
a card from the top. Yeah. Yes.
Or indexing 0.
So check this out. We have a little note here, a little hint. Note this method will require reference to a deck object, right? So let's instantiate a new player. Cool. So I have my deck, a new deck, and I'm going to shuffle it. Let's have a player called, player called, dang. All right, I got to, okay, player 1 equals new player. Cool. So I have this player 1 object, right? I want player 1 to be able to draw from what?
Your deck.
My deck, right? Does that make sense? So I'm passing this entire object, this deck object, into my draw method, which means that my draw method needs to take in one argument. So if I go to my player class, I need to take in an argument, or I need a parameter of what type?
Your list of cards.
Yeah, a deck object, right? Which is a list of cards, yes, but more specific, it's a deck object, right? We'll call it just deck, I guess. Does that make sense? So I have a deck object now to play with inside my player class's draw method. So if I do deck dots, you guys see I have all of these methods available from the deck class, right? Like deal, right? Why not use that? So I am going to put into my hand dot add deck.deal. Does that make sense? Do you guys remember what the deal method from the deck class did?
Yeah, I took the one from the top.
Yeah, it just removes a card and returns that card, right? So that card that's being returned from this deal method, we're just adding it to our hand. Does that make sense? Cool. But again, same problem as before. We need this draw method to return a card object. So what I'm probably going to do actually is create a, what's the past tense of draw? Drawn? Droon? Droon.
Drawing.
I think it's Droon, guys. I'm right. Droon card equals deck.deal.
Just like chosen card.
I don't know. And I will add to my hand Droon card, and I will return that Droon card.
And you don't need to know how to spell new computer program.
No, not at all. It's just, you just need to be consistent. Exactly right. Cool. Does that make sense to everybody? Deck.deal, and I'm going to add that card into my hand. Cool? So, let's test this out. So I have player 1, right? And player 1, after my deck, let's check out what our my deck dot cards looks like. And let's have player 1 draw twice. Let's do this. So you guys see I have a little game going right now, right? Player.
Rather than doing the whole draw thing several times, can you just pass in a variable that will automatically run your draw multiple times? That number of times? clubs. So like
Yeah, we can have a draw
clubs.
2 method. Yeah, or like pass and draw, then pass the number 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some number variable.
Yeah, we could do that. Cool. So I've instantiated 2 players, right? Player 1's gonna draw, 2's gonna draw, 1's gonna draw their second card, and 2's gonna draw their second card, right? So now, if I were to console dot or system dot writeline my deck dot cards again here, how many cards should I have? 48. I think you're right. Let's check this out. Okay, so I create a new deck. I shuffle my deck. There. So keep this in mind. Oh, I did not shuffle it yet. Sorry. Step over. What? Did my deck get shuffled? Oh, it did. I just got super lucky. That's crazy. 10 of clubs, 9 of spades, jack of diamonds. Cool. So it did get shuffled. Cool. So now I'm going to keep your eye on player 1 and player 2. As I step forward, an actual player object gets stored into the player 1 space, right? Player 2, an actual player object gets stored in the player 2 variable. And then player 1 is now going to draw. So now 50, it goes down 51. This card should be ace of clubs. We're going to go down. Player 2 now gets a card. This should be an ace of 2 or 2 of clubs, right? And then player 1 should get a 2 of diamonds. Player 1 should get a 2 of diamonds. Player 2 should get a 6 of spades. So this should be a 2 of diamonds. This should be a 6 of spades. Does that make sense? Cool. Ace of clubs, 2 of diamonds, 2 of clubs, 6 of spades. Neither of these are really good hands. So player... Cool. All right. Any questions so far? Cool. So I hope what's happening here is clear. Into the player 1's draw method, we're passing in the actual deck object so that the player object has some deck to work with. Does that make sense? I can't draw from a deck that I don't have. You have to give me a deck to draw from, basically. Yeah. Cool. Break points everywhere. Oh my gosh. All right. Give the player, is this our last one? Yeah, I think it is. Give the player a discard method which discards the card at the specified index from the player's hand and returns this card. Or null if the index does not exist. Okay, so if I've been dealt 5 cards, then I should be able to do something like discard and pass in the parameter of 2, which will remove the second card from my hand. Does that make sense? Cool. So,
What should happen to that card?
what?
Should that card go back into the original stuff?
No, it shouldn't. Yeah, it depends on your game, really, honestly. Yeah, it depends on the game, but most games, I don't think cards go back in the deck. Yeah. So, player 1... dot draw from my deck. If I did this 5 times, then player 1 should have 5 cards in their hand. And I could do player 1.
We have a discard method already, though.
We do?
In deck. We have
We have a deal method.
I thought we have a.
Nope. The deal that's a good point though, because our discard method will look a whole lot like this deal method, with this remove at method, right? Yeah. So player one dot discard like 1 should get rid of the first card, right? 2 is the second card, 3 is the third card, 4 is the fourth card, 5 is the fifth card. Does that make sense as to what this method does? Cool. So let's just leave this here. Player.cs is going to need a public card. I think you're supposed to return it. Discard. It's going to take in what?
Integer.
Yes. Integer, and let's call it the index. Cool. So now everything should be good. Discard 2. Cool. So what do we need to do here?
We need to return, or we need to discard all of the cards up to the index value.
Not all of the cards.
Up to the index value. So if the index is 2, you discard 0 and 1.
Is it the ink?
You could do that if that was the purpose of this method, but I think what the prompt asks us to do is if we have 5 cards and we pass in 4, we just remove the single 4th card. Does that make sense? It's kind of like 5 card stud if you guys have played that.
Is that it's not what this is called?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. So if I have like a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, and like a king, then I'm gonna want to discard my king so I could try to draw for maybe like a 6 or something. That makes sense. Try to get a straight or something. So let's do something like
Is it count length?
hand, because hand is my list of cards, right? Dot remove at index. Does that make sense? Cool. I need to return that card though. So card discarded card is going to equal hand of index, and I'm going to return discarded card. Does that make sense? Couple of quick things that I want to note, point out here though is indexing. If I pass in 1, I'm guessing that my user, the person that's using my game, right, is saying that they want to remove their first card, not the card at index 1, which is actually my second card, right? So since we're 0 indexed, we need to do what with this index integer?
+1.
Plus 1 or minus 1? Is it minus 1?
Yeah, I guess it would be -1. Because if they give you 1,
Yes,
they're
-1,
wanting
yeah.
to take away 0.
Exactly. So now I think this is a little bit more accurate. Does that make sense?
So I don't know about C#, but in JavaScript or in Python, we would want to return something to that person if they tried to do something that was not allowed. So try and return the 8th card, and there is no 8th. And
Yeah.
so we would do an else statement that says you can't do this, you don't have that number of cards.
Yeah,
Do we want to do that?
I think we do. I think that's right in the prompt.
Because
Or null if the index does not exist. So I'm glad you brought that up because I almost forgot. So we can do
without it,
something
essentially it's just going to break.
like it would break it. You're exactly right. If index is greater than hand dot length or counts, then what?
It says return null.
Return null. We can do like a little console.writeLine too, just to give the user a better experience. That's index.
That's more cards than you have.
That's more cards than you have. Cool. Is that right? Index. If I pass in 5 and I have 6 cards, that should be good. If I have, it's greater than or equal to. Because if I have 6, yeah, I think that's right. Cool. Let's test this out.
Well, what if the person has 5 cards and they pass in the number 5? They're wanting to get rid of the 5th, but that's the 4th. Oh yeah, that'll work. Okay.
Is that right?
Yeah, I was just.
I don't know.
My
Let's
brain,
test
my
that.
brain
Yeah,
seems to be having a problem with that.
me too right now.
Something about like we still need to handle what the user's intent is.
Yeah.
You know, if they intend to get rid of the 5th card, or they intend to get rid of, you know, they've only got 2 cards and they intend to get rid of the 1st.
Yeah.
It may have an issue. I don't know. My brain doesn't like it, but it's not telling me why.
I think that's fine. Let's give it a shot. Cool. So system.console.writeLine player.hands. So let's check here and run this guy. So player 1. Boom. At this point, player 1 has 5 cards in his hand, right? Ace of hearts, 3 of diamonds, 2, 5 of hearts, 6 of clubs, jack of clubs. Cool. So if we do discard 2, the player wants to discard this 3 of diamonds, right? Does that make sense? So hopefully as we step over, yes, that 3 of diamonds goes away. And he only has 4 cards. Does that make sense?
So can we test our if they attempt to do something? Is it 1, 2,
Yeah, like maybe like discard like
5?
8. Should we do that?
Yeah.
Hope nothing breaks. Okay, so right now we're here and our player only has 5 cards. We step over. Yeah, I get a console.writeLine that says that's more than you have. And then I just print my hand again. Cool. Alright guys, I think that's all of the prompts that we have. Given the player discard, yep. Cool. So, yeah, I'm going to stop the video.